Welcome to Day 1 of the Sovereignty Protocol. Today we launch a direct surgical assault on the core biological mechanism that is keeping you trapped in place, draining your creative force, and systematically preventing you from reaching the absolute summit of your potential. If you look at your life right now with total unvarnished honesty, and you see a frustrating gap between the massive empire you visualize in your mind and the actual tangible progress you have made in the physical world, you must realize that this gap is not caused by a lack of intellect, a lack of resources, or a lack of good intentions. It is caused by the fact that your biological hardware has been hijacked. You are living through a silent, invisible epidemic, an engineered neurochemical heist where your focus, drive, and aggressive ambition are being systematically stolen from you every single hour of the day, and you are actively cooperating with the thieves. To break free from this matrix and reclaim your authority, you must first comprehend the exact mechanics of the resource being stolen. You have been told by popular culture that dopamine is simply the chemical of pleasure, the warm, rewarding feeling you get when you achieve something great or indulge in something sweet. But that is a complete fundamental misunderstanding of human biology. Dopamine is not the molecule of satisfaction. It is the molecule of anticipation, drive, motivation, and relentless pursuit. It is the primitive neurochemical engine hardwired into your central nervous system that compels you to lean into friction, cross hostile oceans, endure extreme hardship, and hunt down the objectives required for your survival and dominance. When an elite operator locks onto a multi-year goal, whether that is building an untouchable financial enterprise, mastering a complex technical discipline, or sculpting an elite physical machine, dopamine is the exact biological fuel that keeps them staring at the screen, drilling the rep, and pushing through the agonizing wall of frustration when everyone else quits. Under natural historical conditions, dopamine was strictly gated behind intense effort and physical friction. If our ancestors wanted the neurochemical reward of sustenance, security, or social status, they had to trek for miles through brutal terrain, build tools from scratch, or engage in high-stakes physical conflict. High effort yielded high reward, and low effort yielded nothing. This created an evolutionary loop where human beings were genetically wired to fall in love with the struggle, because the struggle was the only gateway to the biological payload. Fast forward to the modern era, and you are operating inside an ecosystem specifically engineered by master behavioral scientists and multi-billion-dollar algorithms to completely bypass the effort requirement. You are surrounded by supernormal stimuli that bombard your brain with massive, unnatural floods of cheap dopamine at the touch of a button. You can scroll through thousands of vivid short-form videos in an hour, consume hyper-palatable artificial foods, access infinite digital stimulation, and receive instant validation without moving a single muscle or producing an ounce of real-world value. You are receiving the biological reward profile of a victorious king while sitting completely motionless in a dark room. Here is the brutal biological reality of what happens when you indulge in these cheap, effort-free spikes. Your brain operates on an uncompromising law of physics known as homeostasis. Your nervous system is constantly fighting to maintain a neutral baseline of balance, working like a delicate neurochemical seesaw. Whenever you force a massive, unnatural spike of dopamine by indulging in a cheap vice, your brain responds instantly to protect itself from overstimulation. It drives the seesaw violently down in the opposite direction, actively reducing your natural dopamine receptors and plunging your baseline far below where it started. This drop below baseline is what clinical scientists refer to as the pain-pleasure balance, but in your daily life, it manifests as an agonizing, invisible trap. It is that sudden, heavy wave of restless anxiety you feel 10 minutes after a long scrolling session. It is the unexplainable brain fog that settles over your mind when you sit down to read a complex book. It is the profound, suffocating lack of motivation that makes working on your business feel like dragging an anvil through wet cement. When your baseline dopamine is depleted, normal, meaningful tasks lose all their color and urgency. Your brain, operating in a state of neurochemical bankruptcy, looks at a high-leverage task that requires deep focus and long-term patience and perceives it as painfully boring. It demands another instant, high-octane spike just to feel normal again. You become an addict, not just in the clinical sense of heavy substances, but in the operational sense. Your daily behavior is completely dictated by the desperate, unconscious search for low-effort dopamine relief. You check your phone every 4 minutes because your baseline is so low that quiet focus feels like torture. You procrastinate on the critical sales calls, the financial audits, and the difficult skill-building sessions because your hijacked brain prefers the guaranteed immediate hit of cheap distraction over the delayed, hard-fought victory of real progress. You are trading your ultimate legacy for microscopic crumbs of artificial comfort. Look at the mathematical horror of this trade. Every single time you yield to an addictive compulsion, you are taking an exorbitant, high-interest loan out against your future cognitive capacity. You get 15 minutes of mindless numbness today, and in exchange, you pay with 3 days of depleted focus, weakened emotional discipline, and a paralyzed work ethic. You are actively propping up the multi-billion-dollar platforms and industries built to monetize your distraction, while your own treasury sits empty and your dreams rust in the rain. If you want to achieve true, unbreakable sovereignty, you must declare an immediate, absolute war on low-effort dopamine. You must understand that the modern world is designed to keep you pacified, docile, and weak through hyperstimulation. The elite operators, the sovereign minds who rule their respective domains, do not possess superhuman genetics or magical willpower. They simply guard their dopamine baseline with absolute paranoid reverence. They refuse to flood their brains with cheap noise, which leaves their neurochemical receptors pristine, sensitive, and hungry. Because their baseline is clean, they derive immense exhilarating drive from doing things that are difficult. Deep work becomes addicting to them. Overcoming friction becomes their primary high. Building wealth and mastering their craft becomes their sole source of biological satisfaction. Today, on day 1 of this protocol, we are initiating the complete reclamation of your brain chemistry. You are going to stop being a passive vessel for artificial stimulation and start operating as the tyrannical architect of your own focus. We begin by executing a ruthless, cold-blooded audit of your daily inputs. You must look at your routine through a purely clinical lens and isolate the primary low-effort dopamine leaks that are draining your drive. Is it the mindless hour spent scrolling in bed first thing in the morning? Is it the automatic reliance on sugary junk food when you hit a wall of work fatigue? Is it the constant background noise of podcasts and videos that prevents you from ever sitting in silence with your own thoughts? Identify those specific leaks, name them, and recognize them for what they truly are: sophisticated biological traps designed to keep you small. Your non-negotiable directive for the next 24 hours is to completely sever the supply line to your primary low-effort vice. You are going to starve the bad habit to let your receptors breathe. When the inevitable urge arises, when your brain feels that familiar restless itch demanding quick relief, you are not going to panic, and you are not going to yield. You are going to sit directly in the discomfort, observing the craving like a cold scientist, and realizing that the friction you feel is the exact sound of your natural baseline resetting itself. Protect your chemistry. Stop giving away your power for free. Cut off the artificial noise. Embrace the quiet calibration of your mind and own your path.